first time we've had such a parade of famous paintings in this room. Milo.
Well, following on from a presentation where we've been shown that the link between growth and human development and poverty is not... Oh, maybe I should make sure my presentation is up first.
Yeah.
No.
I should put Let me get Milo's presentation up. Where is it? No, I'm not going to try. Thank you. Okay.
Great. I'm going to discuss with you 3 case studies where there's a correlation between economic growth, poverty reduction, or lessons learned on what we can on translating or the links between economic growth, poverty reduction, and improvements in human development. But I will also speak with you about measuring progress and development, because this project first measured progress and development and then did case studies across identified examples of progress. I will start by providing you with a brief outline of the project, then discuss points around measuring progress, and finally lessons learned from Mauritius, Vietnam, and Malawi, 3 case studies we conducted. This project was conducted under, well, the research I'm presenting was conducted under a larger project funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and it grew out of a growing sense within some parts of the international community that there was too little attention paid to development, and that we need to challenge this narrative of pessimism and that development is a useless enterprise. We see this through Millions Fed, Millions Saved, Living Proof, and other large projects. So the objective of this project is to demonstrate that despite challenges, there has been significant progress in development. So that shapes the methodology for selecting the case studies that we are looking at. So on measuring progress, we defined development progress as equitable and sustainable improvements in key dimensions of human well-being, including material living standards, health, knowledge, environment, political voice, and security. The stories were selected across 8 sectors, and we focused on progress, not success, as progress is a process and success is seen more as a finality. And we triangulated qualitative and quantitative data to identify national level progress that was large in scale, sustained, and equitable since 1990. We did 1 country, 1 story, so as not to double up on, otherwise several stories might have come out of Bangladesh, for example. And we paid special attention to surprise stories or stories against the odds. Malawi, for example, is one of those. So on measuring, different measures of progress provides different results. Here in this table, you can see that Thailand has reduced its under 5 mortality from 31 to 7, and Malawi from 209 to 11 deaths per 1,000 live births. Malawi is represented by the blue line and Thailand by the purple bar. The absolute measure will put Malawi as a top performer, and it saved 4 times more lives than Thailand, after all. The relative measure will make Thailand the top performer, 70% reduction, while Malawi achieved a 46%. The indicator matters as well, whether you use a positive or a negative indicator. A positive one is where the desirable outcome is an increase, so you want to increase survival rates, for example. A negative indicator is one where progress is a reduction, so you want to reduce mortality. Here, again, I use Thailand and Malawi as an example, and you can see that if you use a negative indicator, Thailand is a star performer, and if you use a positive indicator, then Malawi is the star performer. The MDGs use positive indicators to measure progress, and behind that is potentially the assumption that it's easier to reduce deaths when you have lots of them in your country. But that has been challenged by several studies, and yeah, I'll stop at that. Now on to another way of measuring progress. aggregate progress provides one picture, but it doesn't tell you who's benefiting and who is lagging behind in terms of progress. So what we did is we looked at quintile-specific health and education indicators. And here you can see Vietnam's progress in under 5 mortality from 97 to 2002. And you see that progress was largely concentrated across the wealthiest 3 quintiles, which are the green, orange, and gray ones, the ones on the right side of the bar charts. Whereas in Malawi, you can see that progress has also been substantial, but it's been quite equitable. All quintiles have benefited, even the poorest ones have benefited more than the wealthier ones. So the policy implications of this is you can measure progress to push your own agenda if you want to. And it's really important to try to complement these different measures and to be transparent about the biases that these different measures represent when you're providing policy recommendations, for example. And we did this to identify our examples of progress and development, and we also triangulated these quantitative figures with qualitative data. And for economic conditions, we identified Malawi, Mauritius, and Vietnam as examples of progress. There we go. So now I'll go on to outline lessons learned on achieving progress in economic conditions from these 3 case studies. I'll first describe them, then describe 4 factors that were shared from those 4 case studies. Mauritius provides an example of reconciling high growth with reduction in inequality and poverty, which has been recently quite an anomaly since the 1990s. Since independence, Mauritius's economy developed equitably and beyond expectations. In 1968, the odds were stacked against it, and there was the Malthusian argument, one of the arguments saying why Mauritius wouldn't develop. Since then, it has developed to become a leading performer in sub-Saharan Africa in terms of economic and human development, and it has succeeded where other countries with comparable initial conditions and trade advantages were unable to do so and exhibited resilience in the financial crisis. Second one is Vietnam. And Vietnam indicates that initial levels of equity can contribute to high economic performance. Vietnam's economy was transformed in the 1990s by a series of economic, social, and political reforms called the Doi Moi policies. These contributed to high economic growth, coupled with dramatic poverty reduction. Income growth, however, has been inequitable. The Gini coefficient between 93 and 2008 has increased by 10 points, from 33 to 43, which is quite a large increase. And that has been exhibited in human development indicators, as we saw previously as well. The third case study is Malawi, which showcases a recent example of economic growth, poverty reduction, and falling inequality. It has enjoyed 7 years of uninterrupted economic growth, averaging well above the sub-Saharan average. Poverty fell from 52 to 39% between 2004 and 2009, according to national statistics. And across several aspects of human development, like under 5 mortality and malnutrition, progress has also been evident. However, Malawi's story is complicated, and progress has been underpinned by a set of precarious factors that raise valid concerns about its sustainability. There are also aspects of education and maternal mortality that haven't been addressed. So, what can we learn from these 3 case studies? And they should be available outside for you if you want to look in more depth, or on this table over here, if you want to read them in more depth. They're short briefs.
Very glossy, very nice.
Sorry, yeah. The 4 factors that emerge from analysis of the case studies that contribute to equitable growth are listed on this slide. So it's policy coherence and continuity, equitable investment in human capital, macroeconomic stability, and pragmatic and sequenced liberalisation. Policy coherence, I should say that these factors are not independent of each other, rather they're complementary. And they do not provide a comprehensive list of factors leading to equitable growth. technology and innovation could be in there as well. Those, however, were not identified from the 3 case studies that we looked at. The case studies spell out additional country-specific factors, if you want to look at them. And given time constraints, I won't discuss all of them under those 4 factors. Okay, so policy coherence occurs when a country's policy framework aims towards a specific set of development objectives and does not contain significant internal contradictions. And evidence indicates that progress and development occurs slowly, as Charles Kenish indicated, and it's not necessarily in a linear manner. Thus, it is important that policy coherence is maintained over time. Mauritius, since independence, engaged in concerted nation-building strategy that was coherent and sustained over the subsequent 4 decades. This strategy set the foundation for Mauritius's sustained progress. And there are very interesting political economic aspects underpinning that you can read in the case study. In Vietnam, the key foundation for progress in economic conditions was consistent and pragmatic leadership by the party, who had an overarching objective towards development or providing its citizens with tangible improvements in living standards. I have 2 minutes, I'm told. And the third, in Malawi, development planning has been disjointed until recently, and there has been an increasing sense of national ownership around the development agenda. And from the key informant interviews, that is one of the key factors contributing to progress in Malawi. So I discussed those. Human capital. There are 2 components of human capital that have contributed to inclusive economic development, and that is the quality and the equity of that human capital. High quality human capital means that the labor force is sufficiently flexible to be able to take advantage of national and international market opportunities, move up the value chain and adapt to changing opportunities, diversify and attract international investors. And when it's equitably shared among the population, the broader population can contribute to and benefit from economic growth. I'm not going to go through the examples. You can ask me about those in the question answer session if you like. Then in terms of macroeconomic stability, the stabilization of an economy through balancing its fiscal deficits, stabilizing inflation rates and interest rates, among other policies, sets the scene for equitable growth across the 3 case studies. And achieving macroeconomic stability is a reinforcing cycle, as Malawi indicates, where inflation was reduced because of increasing availability of maize in the country, which reduced inflation rates, because food is such a big component of how you measure inflation. Again, please ask me about specific examples in the question answer session. And the last component is pragmatic trade liberalization. And by most accounts, Mauritius and Vietnam, the progress in Mauritius and Vietnam was largely driven by an export-oriented approach, but we must highlight that they did not go through a big bang approach to liberalization. Rather, they took a dual-track approach, complementing orthodox and heterodox liberalization policies with also strong government intervention. On the other hand, some sub-Saharan African and Latin American countries underwent comprehensive liberalization and made little progress in terms of building their exports or reducing poverty or stimulating growth. So, ask me about specific questions. Again, the main lessons from the case studies I have outlined are 4 factors that have contributed to progress in economic conditions, and I want to highlight as well that these case studies showcase progress in development in an accessible and compelling manner. Their selection methodology reflects this. We do not aim to highlight causality or test counterfactuals or pretend that this is representative across the globe. And the last point is that there is no silver bullet to achieving broad-based growth, rather a package of policies often pioneered by a developmental state. There we go.
Thank you very much.